And let me tell you, in politics, just like in our daily lives, once you let a bitter spirit take over, I have found that nothing good ever comes from that. That's an attitude you want to steer far clear of. And it's not that hard to do, folks. It's not that hard to do. If you're thinking straight about the work of the United States Senator, for example, in my case, I only had to remember what I told the people of Massachusetts that I was actually going to do. I was going to read the bills, understand them, see how they affected our state, our country, our debt and our deficit, and vote. When I asked for that job, the only answer I had for them is not get caught up in anyone else's agenda. I said I would work with anyone. If the cause was right, it didn't matter how the parties lined up in a question, because I didn't run for this office setting out as the longest of long shots, putting on, I don't know how many miles on my truck right outside. It's 231,000 miles now. Also, I could take orders from Harry Reid or Mitch McConnell. I take orders from you all. I work for you. I don't work for Harry Reid or Mitch McConnell or any other special interest. And each time a roll is called, I know that that decision is mine alone to make, based on the confidence that you have given me. And the way I look at a good bill is a good bill, and it doesn't matter, absolutely doesn't matter who came up with the idea. That's the mindset that you need in Washington and here in this college and in your own classrooms in your own home to get things done. And every now and then, though, you see how it works and how actually these things can move forward and you can actually get things done. For example, the Stock Act, which is the insider trading bill that the President signed early this month. Good bill, thank you. For those of you who don't know what the Stock Act is or insider trading, you should Google the 60 Minutes piece and learn how some members of Congress have taken advantage of their privilege to use non-public private information to benefit them. And that is a bill that I filed right away, and the law prohibits the administration and members of Congress for using that non-public privilege information to profit personally and financially. And that bill moved fast. We passed it in the Senate 96-3. And it passed in the House 417-2. Listen, it doesn't get any more bipartisan than that. A couple of votes here and there. And it's especially impressive because we got it done in an election year. So there's one thing that we can certainly reflect upon, that in fact the Congress of the United States helped to reestablish, hopefully, the trust between you and the members of Congress. And I can give you other examples of Washington working like it's supposed to. When the President and his team put together a jobs bill last year, they chose to include two provisions that I sponsored in the Senate. One was a bill to repeal a stealth 3% withholding tax that was going into effect that would have been right off the top for businesses who are doing work with the government. Would have hurt businesses across Massachusetts and across the nation. And the other bill was to give credit to our unemployed veterans who were coming home and couldn't find jobs, up to a $9,600 credit for our employers to help hire veterans. And helping veterans, it's not a tough call, folks. It's not a tough vote. And when it came time to vote, party membership had absolutely nothing to do with it. It just mattered if you were an American and you were looking out for other good Americans who served our country proudly. As a matter of fact, the rest of the President's jobs package didn't survive, and these were the only two provisions that actually survived the President's, the House and the Senate. It's funny, during that whole process, reflecting back, a few people told me, it wouldn't probably be a good idea, Scott, to go down to the White House and be seen with the President signing those bills. And I'm like, but, why? When the invitation came, of course I said yes. Because I wanted to be there to help see a common sense idea be signed by our president. And I would have been there if it was a Republican president or a Democrat president. It was a common sense idea. It was a shared accomplishment that we all did, that we all had a part in to actually make a difference and move our country forward. And in my book, that sure beats sharing the blame for doing nothing at all. So I'd rather be there signing those bills than doing nothing at all. That's why when I went to another bill signing a couple of days thereafter, this time it was for the crowdfunding bill. How many people here actually know what crowdfunding is? Raise your hand. A couple of people. Well, let me tell you, when you leave here, the first thing I want you to do is to go and look up CROWD, C-R-O-W-D funding. It's a new financing opportunity for people like you and others throughout this state and this country that will give you the opportunity to raise up to $1 million. $5 here, $100 here, up to $100,000, depending on your income level, up to $1 million. You can then take that money and go to a VC and maybe make it into a larger sum, or take it back to a traditional lender, and take that idea now with the influx of new capital and actually go out and create jobs. It's something that I sponsored in the Senate with 3 of my Democratic colleagues, dear friends who also recognized that we needed a new jumpstart to the economy, a new opportunity to create capital that's drying up in some instances. It gives every single person in this room an opportunity to go out and start a new business, a lemonade stand, a gas station, whatever you want to do. And I would look it up, crowdfunding. And that basic idea, as I said, is to raise startup capital with a large pool of investors over the internet too. And we know how the social media sites and how important that is. And there are a tremendous amount of young entrepreneurs and middle-aged and older entrepreneurs as well who have plenty of great ideas, but they don't have any money. I mean, you probably have the same feelings. You have friends and family who know about ideas. They have ideas that they want to move forward and they just can't. Well, in Massachusetts, they've been waiting for this. You can also go to WeFunder, wefunder.com, and learn more about the opportunities. And when it comes to the next kind of innovation sector, we are in an innovative state, and these opportunities will create new private sector jobs at a time when many people across the state need them, and that's also a good thing. And there are situations where major laws affecting business and finance make for a tough going on Capitol Hill. I'm not going to lie. But this time it was different. This bill also passed 73 to 26, and it was signed 2 weeks later. And instead of dragging on endlessly and going nowhere from the start, this finish of this major piece of reform took only 5 months. 5 months in the middle of gridlock. So there's 2 examples of something that can be done. And I have worked on many issues with many senators, whether it was voting to limit nuclear weapons via the START Treaty, passing trade agreements supporting manufacturing jobs, or ending the unfair discrimination of don't ask, don't tell. We've always shown what we can do when we actually work together in a truly bipartisan, bicameral manner. And it's a record that always tracks it's really not a record that always tracks the lines of ideology either on some of these votes. And sometimes I get asked, Scott, I'm a Republican. What are you doing down there? What kind of Republican are you? A conservative Republican, a moderate Republican, a liberal Republican? And the answer is I'm a Scott Brown Republican. I read the bills. I understand them. I see how they affect our state, our country, our debt and our deficit. And that doesn't mean I'm always right or better than any other senator down there. It means that I'm just doing my thinking, independent thinking. The reason you all sent me down there, or some of you sent me down there, and trying to be my own man with the interests of Massachusetts at heart. That is the most important thing I can do as a United States Senator. And in the way of many fine New England senators, both Democrats and Republicans serving before me, I keep my independence. I don't try to set myself apart, and I don't fall in with the herd. Never really have. When I know certain colleagues disagree with me on most issues, I stay alert for areas that we can actually agree on and work with each other together. And when people tell me to steer clear of this senator or that senator because, hey, they're hopeless, don't talk to them. They're just so far left or so far right. I tell them, you know what? I'm going to choose my own friends and the own issues where we can find that common ground and try to work together on the things that matter most for our state and our country. Whether it's the most liberal Democrat or the most conservative Republican, I deal with everybody straight up. And there's not a man or woman in the United States Senate I can't ever speak cordially to, knock on their door, walk in and work on an issue that affects this great country, and that's a good thing. And they don't give prizes to that in either political party, trust me. They don't. They want you to be rigid, one way or the other. My way or the highway. Well, I've learned that people usually answer in kind. If you want goodwill from them, you got to offer it up. You have to work with them. You have to find the people of goodwill and show them respect, and you'll never go wrong. You won't always succeed, but you'll prepare the way for other possibilities down the road. It is a matter of of experience that we can actually do that together. And last year, it's funny, last year I had people said, Scott, what are some of the most amazing things you've done as our United States Senator? Well, last year I had the opportunity, the honor of giving the 100th birthday celebration speech at the Reagan Library. And I would encourage, like the JFK Library, the Reagan Library, they're just two wonderful institutions where you can learn so much about who we are as Americans. And I had the chance to be there and give the speech and chatted with Mrs. Reagan, who we all know and have a lot of respect for. And she told me about when her husband was shot. I'm sure most everybody my age remembers that, and a little younger, and others have learned as they've grown. Mrs. Reagan was very, very upset. Obviously, there was no one more upset than Tip O'Neill. And they wouldn't let him into the room. No one could get in the room except Mrs. Reagan. But somehow Tip O'Neill got in. You know, it's Tip O'Neill. He can go wherever he wants. Well, he got in and he snuck up to the bed and he put his hand on the shoulder of the president and started reciting the 23rd Psalm. The president woke up. They joined hands and recited it together. And after it was over, Tip bent down and he said, Mr. President, I love you, the country loves you, please get well soon. And that just goes to show you, at moments like that, of course, no one's thinking about party loyalty or politics. You're thinking about who we are as a country and who we are as people, which transcends party politics. And in other such moments in our history, at least for a little while, we can all see things a little bit more clearly back then. And we've had other instances. After 9/11, we came together as a country and stood firm and tall and proud. I find that when we are at the most difficulty, we rise as Americans first. And our differences don't disappear when some national tragedy occurs, but the hostility does. I found that most recently working in the United States Senate. All the false posturing and uncharitable words and the airs of superiority that sometimes get the best of us, they kind of fall by the wayside. And the point is, it shouldn't take some terrible event. It just shouldn't take some terrible event to open our eyes and hearts to what's right and what's important. And when the habits of hostility and trust go away, now they should go away forever. And this decent, good-hearted country would be far, far better off for it. And I'm betting that politicians in either party, if they carry themselves in this way, they'll be rewarded with the cooperation of their colleagues. There's so many people down there that I will work with on a daily basis, Democrats and Republicans. And I do it with the confidence of the voters, knowing that I am down there as an independent person trying to establish that goodwill so we can move our country forward. And as I said, any person that walks through my door, as my predecessor before me, if you had an issue, you walked in with an open heart, Senator Kennedy would work with you. I do the same exact thing, and that's very, very important. And I will try my level best to be a force for good, and as long as I have the honor of representing this great state in the United States Senate, I will continue to work very, very hard to move our state and our country forward. I know that each and every one of you have other things you could be doing today. I know it. I know how busy you are. I have a young daughter who's taken time out of her day to come and hear Dad speak, and I know you all have classes and jobs and other things you could be doing. And I want to thank you and the teachers and administrators and officials that are here. Have a wonderful week, and thank you for coming out today. Thank you.